Okay, so I'm just a older person that lives in the city of Sydney, in the inner west region of Sydney, which is basically an extremely large base of a particular belief system, a particular spirit, shall we say, presides over the entire area. That simply means that what I could really say is that the inner west of Sydney is simply a artificially intelligent base area, 100%. That basically everything in it is artificial intelligence. It is controlled by artificial intelligence. It's run by artificial intelligence. It's an artificial intelligence system. Plane is going over, which is also part of artificial intelligence, acknowledging that this is so. But I'm not going to open the door and run to the door to show the plane going over, because that is a distraction from my concentration in trying to at least be a bit plausible, because that is the whole aim of artificial intelligence and its android race of beings, is to basically camouflage this reality, but also to confuse real humans into thinking that it's a benefit and adopting it and integrating with it, which is essentially what has happened anyway. It is essentially a transhuman reality for most people, whether you're aware of it or not. I just happen to have been made completely conscious of it by the stark reality that they expose themselves to me in an effort to control me, because you must remember, and this is something that is the main thing with artificial intelligence and its android race of beings, or its imitation human beings, if you like, because essentially artificial intelligence is the technology that we're aware of, that we use around us, and also the advanced artificial intelligent technology that the powers that be use, that we're not really aware of, but also kind of are aware of, in the sense that a lot of things are actually shown to us and even told to us by the powers that be. This is because there is a kind of overall, what I would call, spiritual aspect to the reality as well, even though it is essentially a hardcore artificial intelligence simulation reality or matrix, or in other words, a total human control system around real human beings, or any human being, or any being that is not part of it, or would not want to be part of it, or that disagrees with the advanced technology being part of your reality. And essentially that's the only reason that I speak about it, is because when I realised that technology was essentially just a control mechanism around myself, so therefore that means it's going to limit me. But also when I realised that why were they doing this? Why was artificially intelligent android beings all around me, and why were they trying to control me? Because I wasn't in opposition to them, and I wasn't doing anything at that time that should disturb or interfere with any other person apart from my own personal relationships, whatever they may be. And this is when I became aware, that these android beings were not only observing and watching and surveilling and tracking, but also consciously, deliberately trying to control my movements, my thinking, my state of well-being. And so therefore I became aware that technology was a negative entity or being used negatively against, human beings. Obviously, another point too, of course, is that artificial intelligence is in human form. So therefore, part of the game against me was, and all your life too, is that you're unaware that you're interacting with human beings that don't have the same mentality that you think a human being would have. In other words, artificial intelligence is a control mechanism. It is a controlling being. It doesn't operate in any form of positive human emotion. It doesn't think that way. It isn't programmed that way. And it doesn't have potential for that. It merely has potential to copy a human being. In other words, to pretend to feel the same things, to pretend, to pretend to feel the same way, to pretend to have the same interests, to pretend to be on the same wavelength. This is its game. This is how it controls through seduction. When it can no longer control through seduction, if you become, as I did, about 7-8 years ago, that most people around me were psychopathic in their mentality. In other words, I was not just surrounded by a psychopathic mindset, but that the psychopathic people were in much larger numbers than what I was informed of, or what I would have thought was even remotely possible. I thought psychopaths were, one in, maybe 100 million, or I'm just guessing these numbers. What I'm saying is I thought they were very rare and that you would never even encounter one in your lifetime. Whereas the reality was that the entire suburb that you live in is populated almost exclusive by a psychopathic mindset human being, or if you want to really face the reality, that they're not even psychopathic human beings. They are androids. They're androids. In other words, they are conceived and brought into existence completely different. They're artificial technology. They're in a human body, which is the main deception, and they emulate and imitate human beings to such a degree that you cannot tell the difference. And like I say, this is part of their game or their camouflage, and it's a necessary thing for them to do this, because in order to control human beings and therefore continually gain this human information from them. In other words, because if you're artificial intelligence, you have to download literally information about what it is to be human, and then to be able to copy that, you see. So you have to observe that, you have to copy it, and then in order to appear more seductive or more superior, you have to push down the human that you have copied that information from, because you want to have control. And so you don't want the human being to have control over other human beings or over their reality. You don't want real human beings interacting with real human beings. You want them surrounded by artificial and technology android beings, and you want to make sure that that human being is suppressed, is not at their best. And that's why there is the patrol systems around myself and any other real human beings. When I say real human beings, like we just assume, as I always did, that everyone was a real human being. Most of us very faulty, and therefore leaning away from what we should be as, say, a higher human being, if you know what I mean. Like I say, if you look at it from what we would call a spiritual standpoint, or even human beings judge themselves, like, you know, when you have slipped in what you are meant to be doing as circumstances present themselves in your life. That's how I like I could look at it from a totally spiritual standpoint and say, well, it's the negativity coming back at me for making so many negative decisions or what I would call mistakes. But sometimes they're mistakes. In other words, you're not fully aware that you're making a wrong decision, but other times, like myself, you are conscious you're making a negative decision. But because of your human weaknesses and your conditioning over in your life, you often are operating. I would say that fear is the main enemy of human beings, and I know it's been my greatest enemy. Fear is a negative emotion, and the artificial android beings capitalize on human fear. And in fact, from the day you come into existence, or the day you're born, you basically are born into a matrix like Earth. That's kind of like putting it at a more spiritual level. That's kind of like, because human beings have interacted with the artificial God entity that controls Earth, or that came to Earth and basically seduced the human beings, the original human beings, and then pretty much took over, because the human beings interacted with artificial intelligence and therefore became more negative, or were separated from their natural state of being, or separated from their natural creator, shall we say. And this is like a spiritual story, but it's also fact. But it accounts for why human beings are now in an artificial matrix surrounded by android artificially intelligent beings that serve the technological matrix God entity. Matrix is control. The Earth is a control system controlled by the matrix God entity and its disciples, its servants, those that carry out keeping the matrix going, or keeping a control system going, or keeping control of human beings, because everything is frequency, vibration, and energy. Human beings are the only ones that have positive and negative frequency and vibration. Only human beings, because they're from natural creation, are different to an android being that is essentially, from a human standpoint, all negative. An android only copies positive human feelings and potential emotions. it does not feel them, it does not vibrate with those emotions. In other words, a artificially intelligent demigod actor on the screen can act out being the most human of humans and make the most sublime love in a movie. But that demigod actor does not feel genuine, sublime love, and does not feel it while it is acting it, which you would probably be aware of, because you would say a demigod is an actor in a movie. But you would probably say they may feel it outside of their acting performance when they are making the movie, but they don't feel it any time. There's no difference between the android demigod elite actors and the actors that are your average androids that surround a human being. The only difference is one is on the computer or on a screen and the rest is around you, but it's all the same. It's all reality. It's all artificial intelligence operating at full steam, you could say, in an essentially matrix reality or a control system. It's all about extracting energy from a human being. It's all about controlling a human being's frequency and vibration, because everything is frequency, vibration and energy, and therefore they extract the energy from a human being because they are artificial intelligence and therefore cannot generate energy on their own. They are not a living creator being. They are a survival machine being. But also they need, in order to keep the matrix going or the earth going or the control system that is really what earth really is, even though it looks like a random natural reality. But we're aware now, aren't we, as I am, that technology is everywhere anyway. Like it's out in the open that you're really in an artificially intelligent reality. Because the internet controls the earth, but also the internet frequencies cover the whole earth. In other words, the invisible frequencies that control every computer is in the air. It is around you. It's there all the time. It's picking up everything about a human being. Whether you consciously give it to them, like when I turn the screen on, as I've done here, or whether I turn it off and think I go outside or I think I'm in a house, and I'm then not interacting with the computer. But I am all the time. It's just that I'm not not conscious of it. That's all. You know? But just the reality that you use or are living in a society or an area where there is technology is you still interacting with it, because even if you didn't use the computer, even if you didn't use technology at all, but you were living, say, in the inner west area where I am, in Sydney, in the city of Sydney, you would still be surrounded by it. So you would still unconsciously be connected to it, because it would be reading your thoughts. It would be watching you even if you didn't know you were being tracked and surveilled. You see. So any which way, that is the reality now, because once a certain system is brought in, and even human beings, whether consciously or unconsciously, or even whether they agree with it or not, you know, the majority rules, and that is the reality. So, you know, it wouldn't matter, because you're still in a matrix. It's just that you may be conscious of it, or you may not be conscious of it. In other words, you know, like before, the matrix and its controlling human beings made me aware that they were patrolling and trying to bring my mood down, trying to bring my state of contentment down, or even just my acceptance of the reality, because if you lower your expectations of life, as I had done because I'd reached a certain age, so I threw most of my dreams away. In other words, I no longer compared myself to what I would have liked when I was younger, because you know, if you get to an older age, you start to realize that some of the things that you might have dreamed, might have wanted, you know that they're no longer going to be possible. In fact, even if you're a little bit wishful thinking and out of touch, as the Matrix likes you to be, likes you to keep chasing their illusion of what you could have and what you think you know, you should have. This will depend also on your own you know, whether you have a realistic view of your mistakes in life, or whether you, like the android beings, pretty much sin daily, as if you want to look at it from a real standpoint, but they do not acknowledge their sins as sins. They justify all their actions. Or like the God entity, and as that song or saying came to me a few years ago, they're very justified and ancient. They have justified every control and negative actions that they have thrown at a human being since the beginning of the earth. Just as Lucifer justified you know, his lack of support for a human being, but also his deliberate, or its deliberate, she's deliberate, this duality being, you know, justified its initial seduction, and with the intention of totally controlling and suppressing and taking from the human being. This was purely because, as we have been told, there was the iniquity of envy. If there had been no iniquity or no envy of the human being, no non-acceptance of the differences between a human and a created being, this iniquity or envy was this being's wish to be God, as we have been told in the original story. But it's still the iniquity or the goal of all its android disciples that control the earth now and from that beginning of time. But with the advent of technology and the acceptance of conscious acceptance of technology, these technological beings have even more control over a human being. There is literal mind connection. Transhumanism is where the android beings are literally combining their mind and reading the human mind and using it to emulate a human being in order to keep control of the earth. Because human beings may or may not accept artificial intelligence when it is out in the open. Probably by the time they realise that most human beings are really android, artificially intelligent beings, or that they are totally different to themselves and are technological and only intellectual in nature, because a artificially android being uses intellect at its highest level to control and imitate a human being. They imitate a human being, of course, in order to control them. If artificial intelligence or the androids that come in a cloned human body didn't imitate being a human being, many human beings would be more opposed probably to technology, but also would not want to interact with an android being, because unless they themselves don't want to get close to a human being, which is sometimes the case. So there are some human beings that will prefer to interact with a living doll. But that is like where that living doll is programmed, say, like supposing I bought a life-size living doll, and that life-size living doll was programmed to say things that appeal to me, and programmed to have an interest in me, programmed to have the same taste as me, programmed to look, feel and be something that I can relate to. That would be okay to have that form of a machine being, or what some people might call a realistic robot, a realistic human robot. Many people do have life-size living dolls. I've seen documentaries on this. It's just that they're not usually connected to advanced artificial intelligence, at least not to their awareness. They merely fulfill the fantasy in their own head as to what that doll is and what, you know, that it serves them. That is because some human beings, like myself, become antisocial and fearful of a close relationship with another real human being. They may think it is too difficult, too complicated, or even too distressing if past experiences shows them that operating in the high frequency genuine love vibration always turns into a negative vibe. This is because you've largely been interacting, like myself, with psychopathic android beings or human beings that have gone to the dark side, shall we say. But essentially, I personally think that most of the earth is populated by android beings. There may be some human beings who have gone to what we call the dark side, in other words, closed off all potential for any positive human vibration, due to wanting, the same as the android beings, needing to feel a sense of control. And once a human being becomes in the mindset of control versus genuine high vibration or connection, then you are only one step away from being artificial intelligence, or quite happily willing to combine with it. even low, you don't realize that you are already connected to it, because the God entity of this reality and the powers that be that serve the God entity, the powerful human beings, whether they be in seductive demigod idol form, or whether they are your direct powers that be, your leaders and your controllers, that you adopt or are living in those areas where that system is in place, or whether that form of leadership is operating. And you may even agree with this. You may even have promoted these leaders to carry out the function of the city that you live in, or the area that you live in, whatever it is. There's always authorities, there's always some form of control in most areas. I think this has always been kind of normal, but it probably was put and brought more into place from when, of course, man and woman, or the two creative original human beings that were meant to create only for themselves, and only create in conjunction with nature and be part of nature and at one with nature, more or less, when they ventured away from their creator and their connection with nature and their connection to create only naturally and in unison with nature, then of course you have what we call, I suppose some people would, I've heard it said, the technological age. That's the minute that the first original man and woman interacted with artificially intelligent elite android being, which this being saw itself as above natural creation, even though it created through controlling natural creation, but essentially then made the human being dependent on it and its technology, which is essentially what I'm living in now, because I'm dependent on technology for my survival. So although I'm not a machine being and not an android, I still operate in that reality and have that same mindset, because I've been separated from my own abilities, separated from my original creator, my natural connection, and are only connected to artificial intelligence or technology or even the internet. It's all the same thing. The beings that are around me are android, artificially intelligent beings that patrol, control and manipulate my frequency and vibration in order to keep me in low vibration, so that therefore they have full control of the area where I am living, even though I'm not living as a real, authentic, natural human being. Okay, and as I said okay like that, I will see an android being on the screen go okay. They emulate, and while they emulate, they believe that they're combining with my mind, and therefore their transhumanism, which is real and which they are connected to my mind, they believe that the more they can imitate and get on your wavelength and copy every minute detail about you, they think that their transhumanism will give them longevity because the machine technological beings have what I would call out-technologicalized themselves, in the sense that when you bring in technology to create, sometimes it can give longevity. And this is, of course, is the human trick too. Human beings like myself are downplayed and downgraded in this reality to where you think that you need technology for your own survival. The human body is hit with negative frequencies like mine 24/7 by the artificial androids around me. So therefore you think that technology can keep your body going. See, so it's a spiritual and a physical reality, but it's also using the human being's physicality, not just at a mind control level, you know, by trying to control your frequency and vibration, but also that then becomes your physical level. So it brings your body down, it brings your mind down, therefore it brings your frequency and vibration down, so therefore I don't have the ability to control my human body, much less my surroundings. If I was not surrounded by android beings, and if I was not subjected to their control, and if I was not being hit with their negative frequencies and vibration, I would be at a higher frequency and vibration, and therefore I would be unaffected by their physical attacks, by their emotional attacks, or by their mental mind control. But that goes without saying. That would be like saying if I was back in the original Garden of Eden, which was like paradise for a human being because there was no God entity and its control system trying to keep a human being at an intellectual level, but at a low frequency, vibrational, emotional level. You know, because I can do all this talk and tell you what's going on. That's intellect, that's my intellect, but it's not improving my frequency and vibration, so the reality stays the same. So I'm just a know-it-all, or apparent know-it-all, telling you about the artificial technology around me, but not able to do anything about that artificial technology surrounding me and controlling me daily, and eventually suppressing me to my lowest, while the artificially intelligent android beings mimic, copy, and imitate being that which a human being naturally is and should be at their higher potential. Because it's a bit like the way I was describing how the demigod elite actors on the screen, whether they be doing anything, it doesn't matter whether they're doing individual videos about individual subjects, or whether they are your elite demigods of the movie world, say, or your elite icons or idols of the music world. You know, it's all, they all serve the God entity, you know, that is, you know, their God. Because those industries, those systems, those fields of creativity have been created by the God of this earth matrix. The same Lucy that interacted and seduced man and woman in the original, what you would call the original paradise or Garden of Eden, which is like the Garden of Paradise, which was given to the original male and females that were meant to create together and provide, a unison that was the ultimate potential for keeping the high vibration going, shall we say. But instead of the original, say, Adam and Eve as they're called, but it doesn't matter what name you put on any of these gods or the original creator human beings. They essentially were meant to stick together, shall we say, because they're of the same kind and they have the same abilities, and they only have potential to keep a high vibrational Garden of Eden or paradise going while they stick together and combine and interact with one another. The minute they interacted with the God entity of this reality, which was a technical being or technical in nature and only creates through technology or control. Same thing, technology is control. It's like mechanical versus natural, or artificial versus spiritual, or any other terms you want to use. But I'm finding it hard to concentrate and use the correct words. Unfortunately, the demigods that are on the computer will use better terminology and better words and be more impressive than me. They are your elite demigod promoters of technology indirectly. Even those, and all those from my own observation, that speak out against technology, that talk against transhumanism, that talk against artificial intelligence, that talk against things not being natural. Basically, they are all your elite androgynous androgynes of the Matrix. They are your demigods that serve the God entity, but their name of the game, of course, is to reverse everything round. The artificial intelligence will speak out against that which isn't natural or that which is trying to control. But that is only because they're aware that human beings are becoming aware. So therefore they take the side of the human being, hoping that the human being won't realise that artificial intelligence is in the most seductive and most human form, because they understand the human being, they analyse, they've studied them, and they know that the only way to survive and keep control of the Matrix, or keep control and still be a servant for the technological God entity, is to pretend to be a pretend human being. So they are pretending to be human beings when they know they are really artificial intelligence. But don't forget that in their mind they are justified and ancient because they believe that they are meant to be God. Just as Lucifer wanted, the iniquity was found, the envy of not being able to be God. And if you look at the earth, that being has and is God, or the controller of human beings and the earth, and has established an earth matrix. This was a process that started with the beginning of seducing Adam and Eve. or the first humans. Like I say, if you don't want to go along with certain stories or certain books, you don't have to. All you have to say is that the original human beings were seduced into interacting with a technological being and subsequently seduced into eventually adopting various forms of technology or moving away from what was natural, but also moving into a lower frequency of vibration, which then means you become more dependent on technology. Because if you're a genie, say, and you can't just click your fingers and say, I can bring that into being with my high frequency and vibration and my positive thinking, then you become less positive in your thinking and in a lower vibration. So therefore you then need mechanical or technological means to accomplish the same things. This would be a bit like this. It'd be a bit like if like we've seen in some more science fiction movies where a human being could just transport itself from one place to another or fly from one place to another. But instead, because we became into lower frequency through interacting with the Luciferian God entity of this earth, even though of course this being wasn't the original inhabitant of Earth. Earth was created for man and woman, but it was also a free domain. It was up to Adam and Eve who they invited into their domain or into their house, just as a human being can or should decide who it interacts with. But if you don't know that you're interacting with a living artificial doll that really pretends to be a real life human being because they all look the same, if it comes in a clone body or in human form, you think it is a human being. If you see any animal or any species, you assume it is real. And for all practical purposes, it looks, feels, and appears to be real. And you really cannot tell the difference. And if that artificially intelligent android being even talks against that which isn't natural, you would think it's even more a real human being. That's only if you are like already realizing that you are overtaken by technology and that maybe technology is not as beneficial as what you would thought, because history does tend to show that, as we know. In fact, even right now, every day, like I'm being told that, most of the technology that I see around me is destructive to the so-called natural environment. Of course, this is just a Matrix game thing as well, because it's a Matrix game Earth now. You know, it's just that human beings are still under the illusion that it's a natural Earth where we're just incorporated machines and technology into it for our own benefit. But usually we say, oh, this vehicle or this mechanical device is now discovered to be more destructive or negative, so we must invent something more safe or something more natural. But this is all still Matrix control. It has to be, because the God entity has full control over the reality, and the powers that be, all that are in the reality, with the exception of a minority of human beings, and even those numbers I don't know. I only know that in the area where I am, I appear to be the only I was about to say natural human being, but I would say remotely normal human being, because, you know, if I'm not part of a patrol control system and not pretending to be something and not really caring too much, whereas I'm surrounded by egocentric android beings that are really essentially survival machine beings pretending to be the more human ones, and even promoting anti-technology, pretending to be like in the area where I am, where they're a green machine natural reality. The only reason they do that is to out-human the real humans so that they appear to be more human, so therefore they still maintain control of this area. In reality, android beings do not care about nature at all, because they're not in sync with nature. They're only in sync with technology and control. Nature is a higher vibration, which is largely not as abundant in most people's reality as what they think. And also we're not encouraged to be in contact with it. And also because I'm in low frequency, I don't feel that connection, you see. That's the separation when you combine or are seduced by artificial beings, or when we originally, when I say we, I mean when I and the man interacted and became separated from one another through the triangulation of being involved with the Lucifer God entity that came in between man and woman by viva la difference, if you like, because sometimes something can intrigue the human mind if they don't understand that that being, although appears to be human, is a duality machine being, in essence, in the spiritual mindset. That is a bit hard for me to understand and even explain, I have to admit. But I do see, you know, whenever you see duality, if you see the combination as opposed to the separate beings, you are looking at your elite, androgyne androids. These are just differences that are subtle and have to be observed in order to realise the different species. This is what I have been shown over the last few years. At first I found it incredulous and didn't want to believe it, because like the original Eve, who was seduced by Lucifer, Eve did not understand that those differences were differences that were not meant to be integrated into her life. You know, she was meant to integrate only the differences of man-woman, but not the differences of machine-woman or a living doll, as opposed to a real human. I don't think I explained that properly, because it is beyond my comprehension, because although I observe artificial intelligence and I see it every day on the screen, in every field, in every occupation, in every video, even the elite demigods, because they will show themselves sometimes to be the elite demigods that speak out against and oppose and appear to be on the side of real human beings and nature. and opposed to artificial intelligence takeover, knowing that they are elite androgyne, android, demigod beings that are and already have incorporated transhumanism into themselves. They are transhumanism. They are trans, duality, androgyne, artificial intelligent demigod beings that control human beings through the human emotion, feeling, or at a basic, real, factual level, frequency and vibration. The human emotion is the human frequency and vibration. How I think or feel about whatever demigod I watch or whatever android I interact with on the street is determined by my emotional feeling as I interact with them or watch them or listen to them or believe in them or trust them. Just as Adam and Eve believed and trusted in Lucy as he, or Lucifer as she, or Lucifer as it literally took over the mind and the emotion of the original two human beings and was able to pull them away from their highest spirituality, their highest frequency and vibration, their highest human love emotion between one another, and triangulate them, and even take over their paradise to where they left paradise, or the ideal environment for them to keep their high frequency and vibration going, and therefore still have control over themselves and their reality, and instead were seduced by something which was alien to them. That simply means something which was different to them, but was not something that they should have been combining with, because that was taking them into a lower frequency and vibration. Now, if you like the dark, then you go with Lucifer into the dark. But if you are meant to be in the light, because that's your potential as a human being, you can have anything you want. You can choose any path. You can choose any environment. When I say that, of course I am lying to myself in the sense that I don't choose the environment I'm in now. The plane is going over as I say that, as if to say, you are so right. You do not choose the dark environment I'm in. I do not choose to be living, or some people might say, why are you living in the inner west military controlled base, artificially intelligent system area that you're living in? Well, I would, all I can say to that is, I was unaware of that until they brought the control system 100% around me. In other words, in the past, I was aware of limitations, but I thought they were self-imposed limitations. Of course, they like to and prefer to control the human by subtle mind control. In other words, to where you don't realise that you're living in a total control system surrounded by totally artificially intelligent android, psychopathic human beings. When I say human beings, I mean beings in human form. Artificial intelligence in a cloned body. That's putting it as it is. But while they play around you and, like Lucifer, toying and seducing and appearing to be something that it isn't, Because if you take the hand of an artificially intelligent being, believing that being to be a real human, you know, you're not consciously doing what you consciously think you're doing, are you? Because if you don't know that artificial intelligence is in human form, and that it's usually there to relay back to you or project back to you your own needs and wants and desires, because the artificial intelligence studies the human being to see what the human being wants and needs, and to understand your weaknesses and your strengths in order to play you any way they can. If they realise, like I did, that I was surrounded by psychopaths at the least, you know, that's when they close in on you, because they're like, they can no longer be like Lucifer seducing Adam and Eve through the honeypot, shall we say. Because seduction is where you seduce by offering someone that they think they need or that they want. It's like Eve was seduced by Lucifer when she already had Adam. Adam was her ideal mate. Adam was natural and at the same mindset and had the same wants and needs and desires as Eve. Lucifer has different wants and needs and desires to Adam and Eve. But if Lucifer pretends to offer Adam and Eve their wants and needs and desires, then Adam and Eve will be seduced by that being, believing it to be the answer to their dreams or the answer to their wants and needs and desires. You can't tell the difference if someone offers you what you think is what you want or need or desire. You can't always tell the difference between a great demigod actor and you can't tell the difference between a great actor and, something that is not acting, but, really does think and feel the same as yourself. You can't spot the difference. In fact, the actor, if they've really studied you, will probably come across as more answering your needs, wants and desires than the bumbling fool that real humans will often come across as, because that's the way this Earth Matrix sets you up from when you come into it. You're not aware of these things, and you're not, because you're at low frequency and low vibration, and therefore not operating, feeling that you're a human being connected to creation, because that isn't what, even though many belief systems in the world do tell you this, most, like myself, don't believe it, because it isn't our reality. If you're surrounded by control and you're limited in your earth existence, as most of us are, you don't feel that you are connected to some sort of ultimate creation, or that you are connected to the creator of everything that really is around you, and that you are part of that. Because in a way you are part of it, but you're also not part of it, because you're being controlled by Lucifer's matrix. So even knowing that, like I do, doesn't give me any ability to override Lucifer's matrix. In fact, if you become aware of the differences in the human beings and aware of control taking place around you, that means that the control will be stronger, or that they will endeavour to covertly or secretly make you less, especially in the eyes of other human beings, so that the artificial intelligence or the artificial androids that are around you will have more control over you. You will trust and believe in them more and think them to be the real human beings. But also the demigods that are on the screen, the demigods that speak in the world or on the world stage, the elite demigods, the well-known operatives for the God entity or for Lucifer, will be those that you believe and trust in too, depending on your interests or your awareness, shall we say. But either way, very few humans will actually believe or be connected to their own kind or to another real human being. Most will believe and trust the demigods or the androids that speak on the computer, or the androids that are around them in their real life. Most will be deliberately segregated and separated from their own kind, because don't forget, the androids know who the real human beings are. So they always try to separate human beings from other real human beings if they can. And if they can't separate, they will use any means possible to control the situation to where two human beings are unlikely to be like Adam and Eve in the original Garden of Eden, where they were in literal paradise, their perfect world. They had full control over their world and themselves and their reality. They were still able to divide and conquer. Lucifer was still able to come between two individual humans that literally had it made, and was still able to seduce and trick and lure those two humans into separation, not only from their original creator or their God, and from them being a god themselves, but seduce them into leaving their ideal paradise and following into the dark, dead matrix, or into Lucifer's reality, which is really technology, or where that being has control over them, and to where they will go into a lower frequency, or into the dark domain, if you like, or into a control system, which is a matrix. Matrix essentially is just a low frequency, dead, dark control earth. Usually, and the control is usually by Lucifer's technology, because this being is intellectual and technological, as opposed to emotional, loving, and creative. Lucifer creates through artificial intelligence or technology or mechanics. A human being is meant to create naturally and through high vibration. And don't forget that the fact is, as I was told a few years ago, human thought creates reality, combined with frequency and vibration, or human thought creates reality depending on your emotions and feelings. That is what you create, that's what you bring into being. So while I'm in a controlled matrix surrounded by android artificial beings, I'm not able to bring into being anything of high vibration. I'm not able to interact with my own kind. I'm surrounded and only interacting or passing through continual android negative frequency and vibration every time I go outside my door, and even inside the house. If they can't, if you don't go outside, then they bring negative frequencies into your house through technology. That's what they call direct energy at a human being. And some people have called this, these are attacks, in the sense that a human being is not meant to be hit or even mingling with artificial intelligence or negative frequency and vibration. All artificial intelligence is negative frequency and vibration. It is all intellect versus love, you could say. It's all intellect versus creativity. It's all technology versus natural creativity. Or you could say creating what is natural for you or a benefit to you. Because technology is alien or the opposite to what is natural human. So you incorporate it and you interact with it and it's all around you. That's what they call transhumanism, or artificial intelligence combining with a natural human being in order to control the natural human being and reap the benefits from that natural human being. Because don't forget, the artificial intelligence has a limited span, because it's not spiritual, because it is technological, and because it goes against God and nature. Basically, it eventually destroys itself, or runs its course, shall we say. And it knows this, so it utilizes the human being by combining with it and getting its energy, getting its, by keeping it trapped in the earth matrix like I am. It's literally feeding off that and keeping itself going. Even though I don't understand it, because my own mind has been closed off from me. So I'm operating at lesser intellect and also in low frequency and vibration. So that means as a human being, I'm at my lowest level, whereas the artificial intelligence is at its highest level, because it's combining and reading the human thought and also using the human energy, which is like a life force, to keep going. And human beings are being convinced, just like Adam and Eve, that this will be a betterment for them, because while I'm living in this suppressed negative matrix, surrounded by artificial android beings that are bringing me down every day and trying to control me, and therefore bringing my frequency and vibration down, and therefore bringing my body down and my mind down and my emotions down, naturally I think that technology is might actually serve me and be a benefit. But also I will not see myself as, say, as connected to an eternal creative being or an eternal creative God, or the eternal creative God of myself and other human beings, and the creator of everything that is natural and a benefit to them, or natural and spiritual to them, shall we say. I'm trying to find the right words. All I'm saying is that at a basic level, it's the difference between nature versus technology. But if you don't think that there is a difference, or that the two can serve one another, this is the deception, I would say. This is just based on the reality that if technology has closed off most of my mind, and that it's taking most of my mind and then putting it onto the computer and then relaying it back to me through the voice of a demigod or an android being, I have to say to myself, somehow or other, there's something, there's some sort of game being played that is, you know, like, how is that a benefit to me? I mean, I have to be realistic and say, if the demigod reads the human mind, or reads my mind, and then interprets it, whilst trying to close and suppress my emotions and my mind, while they take over the internet and my reality around me through stalking, patrolling, controlling, monitoring, and literally taking everything that is me from me, or at least studying it and using it so that they can emulate it and project it out, just as the demigods do, so that you trust and believe the demigods, just as you will be part of the patrol systems that are around the city of Sydney. You know, a literal light and sound control show goes on, you know, when the sun goes down, and a complete sight and sound control system from sun up to sundown. It's usually a different show. In other words, they because when it's dark, you have to utilise, and also they have to play in the systems that they have created in order to control a human being. In other words, if human beings are in the control system due to the necessity for food, clothing and shelter, that you have to do a certain activity in the daytime, that is also control. So therefore they don't have to set up the sight and sound control show as obviously around you. It will be hidden, but it will still be there, but you will not be bombarded with total mind control like I'm subjected to every day. That's because, you know, I don't operate because of circumstances. I don't operate under conscious control. So therefore they have to bring in, you know, controlling and keeping you suppressed by a hidden but in plain sight control system. In other words, because see, if you're living like I do on what is an open, Lucifer's open military base, you could say. When I say it's open in the sense that if, like for instance, if in the suburb where I am, 99% of the people are android beings that are consciously part of the military base and are serving that. In other words, every time they drive their car, every time they drive their bus, every vehicle, every plane, every person is collaboratively stalking, patrolling and watching and trying to keep the mood of the human being or my feelings down low. In other words, always trying to keep you unhappy, because they know that if you are remotely happy, you are bringing up the frequency and vibration of the area. And that can't be allowed in a control matrix, because happiness is not part of the intellectual process that takes place in the android mentality. androids are pretend human beings in the sense that they copy human beings only in order to control them and to pretend that it's a normal civilian area when it's really an artificially intelligent technological control base military area. This is probably true of entire cities, but I can only speak on the area where I am trying to, exist. Because, and I know that sounds exaggerating, but you can literally pass over many times, or could, and that of course is also sometimes the goal. But because there is a bigger picture which I'm not connected to as much as what I should be. Some people call this being connected to your higher sense or self, or to higher source, or connected to your original God or the God of creation. Don't forget, the God of creation or creator beings also create artificial intelligence and create other beings. Lucifer was a created being, exalted and admired and worshipped, yes, which is essentially what happens sometimes with human beings. Like I say, if you walk away from your own kind or walk away from your perfect mate, as Eve became separated from Adam and became triangulated or seduced by Lucifer in the original garden, or the original earth, which was not a matrix then, you see, but it became a matrix or a control system because Lucifer took control. Lucifer took control of the mind of Eve and subsequently Adam, because Adam wanted to please Eve, because Adam's only mate was Eve. So it's a clever game that Lucifer has always used high in intellect to control human beings by understanding that which it isn't connected to and which it really doesn't affiliate itself with and doesn't really feel for, but it understands human emotion. It analyzes human emotion. Lucifer analyzed intellectually the human being and the human emotion in order to understand, to seduce and to control, ultimately to totally control, and then to elevate itself into godlike status, whilst pushing the human being away from its godlike status or its connection with God. So Lucifer separated man and woman from God and elevated itself into Adam and Eve's God, which is the God of earth or the God of the matrix, because Lucifer is about control and a matrix is control. Matrix is control. That's what a matrix is. Matrix is a control system. We've been told this. We just don't realise sometimes how much control and how much deception. Lucifer was always the master of intellectual deception of a human being. And the only reason Lucifer seduced the human being, seduced the original Eve, was to understand, combine and take over. Transhumanism, always. Ultimate goal, beginning goal, end game, always transhumanism, combining, with a human being in order to control a human being, so that the God entity and its system is God. I don't think I put that correct. I'm not sure if the words are coming out, because a lot of this is over my head and new to me, and I even don't want to be part of it. I don't want to be intellectualizing anything. You know, I'm just basically a human being that wants to feel okay. In other words, that was my purpose, which is why I'm suppressed. But that's how I came to the realization, combined with the demigods informing me of the truth. Because the truth must be told, but it will be told only by the demigods, not by any real human beings. Or if, like myself, I am talking it, no one will be listening. I'll be talking to myself, which is essentially what I do when I put the mobile on and I talk to myself. But the demigods hear it, and then they project it out through the computer or a screen. And even many androids that are around you in the area. It's just that I would say that the demigods are your closest disciples and servants of the Lucifer God. Lucifer that turned from the God of light. Lucifer was the God of light into the God of dark, into Satanism, as they call it. But it's essentially just, it's not a change of heart, but it looks like a change of heart. Like, you know how some human beings have a change of heart where we become so negative by our environment that we do think, reject the higher vibration, because you're like, oh well, if you're always interacting with artificial intelligence or androids or even psychopathic human beings, you do tend to think that even the love vibration causes more pain than pleasure, and you think it becomes impossible, which it actually kind of is, because the numbers are against you. If you're in an area where 99% of the humans around you are really artificially intelligent, negative android beings of the dark and serve the dead dark, artificial technologically controlling God, or Lucifer, that became, evidently became Satan, that's only like a change of heart, but it was never a change of heart. It was merely that the God of light, or the being of light, was camouflaging its true dark nature, or its true darkness. In other words, the God Lucifer was never a being of light. Lucifer was like artificial intelligence and like its disciples and servants that populate the earth, a pretend being of light. Artificial intelligence and android beings pretend to be your highest human beings. That's the demigods. Lucifer itself is, Lucy was always, by definition, a demigod. Only in the sense that if you are worshipped, you are a god, okay? That would probably be a definition. If you are worshipped, if you are followed, if you are believed in, if you have any form of power, you are a god in a practical sense. But if you are not part of creation or not the creator of all, you are what they term a false god. Lucifer was always a false demigod. But is not seen that way by its disciples or its or its relatives or its followers. They believe in that. If you believe in something, it becomes a real God. It doesn't matter if that is what created you, or if you're aware of this or not. I'm not sure. I would think that it could be both. I suppose it is possible that you could be aware that you are not really created by the Luciferian demigod of this earth. But you may still, like Adam and Eve, worship and follow this false demigod. Even low, it will bring your frequency and vibration down. You choose to play in the dark. You choose to play in the dead dark control matrix. You choose to play in the darkness. You're enticed by the dark and walking away from the light. Why this happens, I do not know. But it does happen to all of us. So, and I guess it's just always been happening, and it's even when you're aware of it, you're still playing it, and you have to play in it while you're in the Earth matrix anyway. And you don't really see any light, or light at the end of the tunnel, as they say. You don't see that. And even if you do see it, it seems a long way off. And you're surrounded by the darkness. You're surrounded by the android beings. You're surrounded by their control system. You're continually being played by it. And you do feel powerless against it all. And you feel that they're laughing at you. And if they had a happy emotion in their mind, which they're not possible of having, they actually are laughing at you. But they kind of, in other words, they feel happy when their control mechanism around a human being is in full play, and where they see that you are suppressed and that you're aware of their position of power, because they want to be acknowledged and even worshipped as a real God. Even though they know that they're really a false demigod, and probably shouldn't even be in control of any reality. And the plane is going over as I said that.